Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Wanderer and watched the stars shift from white lines back to tiny dots as the ship dropped out of hyperspace. The new faster-than-light drive had worked perfectly on its first real test, carrying them 43 light years from Earth in just 6 hours. Jake felt proud of his crew and their historic mission to explore the Kepler 442 system. "All systems normal, Captain," reported Chief Engineer Lisa Parker from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panels as she checked every system twice. The hyperspace jump had been smooth, but Lisa never trusted new technology completely. Until she had run every test she could think of. Science. Officer Greg Hamilton was already scanning the system with his instruments. "Captain, I am picking up artificial signals from the third planet. This system is not empty like we thought." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Earth scientists had studied this system for years through telescopes and radio signals. They had found no signs of intelligent life. Now they were 43 light years from home with the experimental drive, and they had just discovered aliens. "What kind of signals, Greg?" "Energy patterns that look like cities, Captain. Big ones. And there are ships moving between the planets." Jake made his decision quickly. "Take us closer to the third planet, but keep our distance. I want to observe before we make contact." As the Wanderer moved deeper into the system, the crew watched their screens in amazement. The third planet was covered in massive cities that glowed with soft blue light. Thousands of ships moved between the planet and its 2 moons. The ships looked like nothing humans had ever built. They were long and thin, with curved surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. "Captain," called out Navigator Ben Jackson, "we have company." 3 alien ships had appeared on their sensors, moving toward the Wanderer at incredible speed. They were smaller than the human ship, but they moved with a grace that made Jake nervous. These aliens had been traveling space for a long time. "Are they armed?" Jake asked. "I cannot tell, Captain. Their hulls are made of something that blocks our scans." The alien ships stopped just outside weapons range and waited. Jake had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was about to speak to beings from another world. "Open a channel on all frequencies," Jake ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that sounded like music mixed with static. The ship's computer worked frantically to translate the words. "Unknown vessel, please. Identify yourself. Are you servants of the divine Zephyrians?" Jake looked at his crew. None of them had ever heard of Zephyrians. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Wanderer. We come in peace from the planet Earth." There was a long silence. Then the alien voice returned, but now it sounded afraid. "Great Ones, forgive us. We did not recognize your divine forms. Please, do not punish us for our ignorance." Jake turned to his communications officer, Ryan Cooper. "Did they just call us gods?" Ryan shrugged. "That is what the translator says, Captain." Before Jake could respond, the 3 alien ships moved aside and a much larger vessel approached. This ship was easily 10 times the size of the Wanderer, and it moved without any visible engines or exhaust. As it came closer, Jake could see that it was made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with internal light. "Captain," whispered Greg Hamilton, "the energy readings from that ship are off the charts. They have power levels that should be impossible." A new voice spoke over the radio, deeper and more musical than the first. "Welcome, new gods. I am Vex 9, speaker for the Trilaxian people. We have waited so long for your return." Jake made a quick decision. He needed information before he corrected their mistake. "WE, we have been traveling for a long time. Tell us about your world." "Of course, Divine Ones. We are the Trilaxians. Of Kepler 442c, we have served the great Zephyrians for 300 100 years since they blessed us with their presence. They taught us to worship properly and showed us the glory of divine rule. But you, new gods, you have come in forms we have never seen. Your ship is different from the crystal vessels of the Zephyrians. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Susan Taylor caught Jake's eye and mouthed the word, "Careful." Jake nodded. They were walking into something much bigger than first contact. "The Zephyrians," Jake said slowly. "Tell us about them." "The divine Zephyrians are the rulers of the galaxy, great ones. They are beings of pure energy who can shape matter with their thoughts. They travel faster than light, without engines, and speak to each other across the stars with their minds. Every world in the galaxy knows of their power. We lesser beings exist to serve them and learn from their wisdom." Security Chief Kate Anderson leaned forward in her chair. She had been quiet during the conversation, but Jake could see the concern in her eyes. They had stumbled into a galaxy where some species had set themselves up as gods over others. How? "Many worlds do the Zephyrians control?" Jake asked. "All worlds, divine ones. There are thousands of species across the galaxy, and all serve the Zephyrians in their own ways. Some provide resources, others serve as workers, and a few are honored to serve as warriors in their fleets." Jake felt sick. They were talking about slavery on a galactic scale. But what worried him more was that these aliens thought humans were gods too. If they refused to play along, they would be exposed as mortals. But if they accepted the worship, they would become part of the system that oppressed billions of beings. "We would like to visit your world," Jake said finally, "to see how you live." "Of course, divine ones, we will prepare a great celebration. For your arrival, all of Trilaxia will rejoice to meet the new gods." As the alien ships guided the Wanderer toward the planet, Jake gathered his senior staff in the conference room. The weight of their situation pressed down on everyone. "We have a problem," Jake said. "These aliens think we are gods, and apparently there are real gods running this galaxy like a slave empire." "What do we do, Captain?" asked Lisa Parker. "If we tell them the truth, they might see us as a threat. And if we do not tell them the truth, we become part of their oppression," added Dr. Taylor. Jake looked out the window at the alien planet growing larger below them. Somewhere in the galaxy, the real gods were probably already learning about the strange new ship that had appeared in their territory. Soon, the Wanderer and her crew would have to face beings with power beyond human understanding. "We learn everything we can," Jake decided, "about the Zephyrians, about this galaxy, and about what we have walked into. Then we figure out how to get out of this mess without starting a war." The Wanderer descended toward the alien world, carrying 43 humans, who had accidentally become gods in a galaxy they did not understand. The Trilaxian city stretched as far as Jake Morrison could see, its buildings rising like twisted spires of blue metal and crystal. Millions of insect-like beings filled the streets, all moving with purpose toward the central plaza where the humans would make their appearance. Jake watched from the window of their transport and felt the weight of 43 lives resting on his shoulders. "Captain, we are getting reports from all over the galaxy," said Communications Officer Ryan Cooper. "Word of our arrival has spread through their quantum networks. Dozens of species are sending messages of worship and tribute." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. In the 6 hours since they had landed, the situation had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. The Trilaxians had built a temple in their honor, complete with statues that looked nothing like humans, but somehow represented their ship. Other alien species were already launching vessels to bring gifts to the new gods. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the ship's xenobiologist, sat across from Jake in the transport. She had been studying the Trilaxians since their arrival, and her notes filled several data tablets. "Captain, their entire culture is built around worship. They have no concept of government or leadership, outside of serving gods. The Zephyrians have been their rulers for 3 centuries, but before that, they served a different species called the Vorthik. "What happened to the Vorthik?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrians destroyed them for trying to claim divine status without permission. The Trilaxians speak of it as a great cleansing that saved them from false gods." Jake felt his blood run cold. The Zephyrians did not just rule through superior technology. They killed anyone who threatened their position as gods. If they discovered that humans were pretending to be divine, Earth itself might become a target. The transport stopped in front of a massive building that looked like a cathedral made of living crystal. Thousands of Trilaxians waited in perfect lines, their 6 legs keeping them steady as they bowed toward the human delegation. Jake had chosen to bring only 5 crew members for this first meeting: Lisa Parker, Greg Hamilton, Dr. Rodriguez, Security Chief Kate Anderson, and himself. Vex 9 waited at the entrance, his insect body decorated with jewels and precious metals. "Divine ones, welcome to the Temple of New Light. We have prepared offerings worthy of your greatness." As they entered the temple, Jake saw displays of technology that made his head spin. Devices that could reshape matter at the molecular level, weapons that could destroy entire moons, and computers that seemed to think faster than any human mind. All of it was offered freely to the new gods. "These gifts," Jake said carefully, "they are impressive. But we are curious about your daily lives. How do you live when the gods are not here?" Vex 9's compound eyes brightened with pride. "We live to serve and prepare for your return, divine ones. Every Trilaxian has a role assigned by the Zephyrians. Some work the fusion farms that power our cities. Others build the ships that carry tribute to distant worlds. The most blessed serve in the temples, keeping your shrines clean and ready." Greg Hamilton stepped forward to examine a device that looked like a small star contained in a crystal sphere. "This technology, did the Zephyrians give it to you?" "Yes." "Divine One, the Zephyrians share their divine gifts with those who serve faithfully. But we must never try to improve upon their designs or create new technologies. That would be the sin of pride, and the Zephyrians punish pride severely." Jake and his crew exchanged glances. The Zephyrians kept their subjects technologically dependent by forbidding innovation. It was a perfect system for maintaining control. "Captain," Kate Anderson whispered, "we have a problem." Jake followed her gaze to a group of tall, ethereal beings who had just entered the temple. They moved, like they were floating rather than walking, and their bodies seemed to be made of living light held together by crystal frameworks. Even without being told, Jake knew these were Zephyrians. The lead Zephyrian spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "I am Keth Prime, voice of the eternal Zephyrians. We have come to greet these new beings who claim divine status." Every Trilaxian in the temple fell to the ground in worship. Vex 9 pressed his face against the crystal floor and spoke in a trembling voice. "Great Keth Prime, these are the new gods who have come to us. We offer them the same worship we give to your eternal glory." Keth Prime's crystalline form pulsed with brighter light as he studied the humans. "How interesting. These beings travel in metal ships and wear fabric clothing. They do not appear to be energy beings like ourselves." Jake stepped forward, knowing that everything depended on the next few minutes. "We take many forms, as is our nature. We have traveled far to see how our subjects live and serve." "Your subjects?" Keth Prime's voice carried a note of danger. "The Trilaxians have served the Zephyrians for 3 centuries. By what right do you claim them?" "We claim nothing," Jake said quickly. "We seek only to understand the great work that you have done in this galaxy. Perhaps we can learn from your wisdom." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Jake could feel his crew ready to fight, but he knew they had no chance against beings who could manipulate matter with their thoughts. After what felt like hours, Keth Prime spoke again. "Very well. You may observe our subjects and learn from our methods. But know this, the Zephyrians have maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not allow that order to be disrupted." As the Zephyrians left the temple, Jake realized how much deeper their problem had become. They were not just pretending to be gods, they were caught between rival factions of real gods, who had the power to destroy solar systems. Over the next several days, Jake and his crew learned the true scope of the Zephyrian Empire. Messages poured in from hundreds of worlds, each ruled by a different species, but all serving the same crystalline masters. The Drakmari provided raw materials from their mining worlds. The Essence Singers used their telepathic abilities to maintain communication networks. The Vorthik survivors worked as laborers on industrial planets, their warrior culture broken by centuries of slavery. Lisa Parker made a discovery that changed everything. While examining Trilaxian technology, she found that her simple handheld scanner could interface with their power systems. The scanner was designed to read energy signatures, but when connected to a Trilaxian generator, it somehow made the generator work 40% better. "Captain," Lisa said excitedly, "I do not understand how this is possible, but our basic tools seem to enhance their technology. It is like our devices can see flaws in their systems that they cannot." Word of the improvement spread through the Trilaxian engineering teams faster than Jake could stop it. Soon, every Trilaxian engineer was talking about how the new gods had improved divine technology with nothing more than a simple scanner. Dr. Rodriguez pulled Jake aside with even more disturbing news. "Captain, I have been studying the genetic samples the Trilaxians gave us. Their DNA has similarities to human DNA that should not exist. It is like we are distant cousins separated by millions of years." "What does that mean?" "I do not know yet, but I am starting to think the connection between humans and these aliens goes deeper than we realized." As night fell over the Trilaxian city, Jake stood on the balcony of their guest quarters and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were probably deciding what to do about the humans who had appeared in their territory. Other species were preparing tribute ships to honor the new gods. And on Earth, 43 light years away, humanity had no idea that their first contact mission had accidentally triggered a crisis that could reshape the entire galaxy. Jake thought about the Trilaxians and their unquestioning faith in their gods. They had never imagined that their divine rulers might be wrong, or that gods could be challenged. But Lisa's scanner had shown them that even divine technology could be improved. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Trilaxians were beginning to ask questions. The next morning brought news that made Jake's blood run cold. The Vorthik, inspired by reports of the new gods, had declared independence from Zephyrian rule. They claimed that the arrival of beings who could improve divine technology proved that the Zephyrians were not truly all-powerful. "Captain," Ryan Cooper reported, "we are getting reports of uprisings on 12 worlds. The species are using modified versions of our scanner technology to enhance their weapons and shields." Jake realized that their simple act of helping the Trilaxians had started a galactic revolution. The gods were about to go to war, and humanity was caught in the middle. The explosion lit up the night sky over the Trilaxian city like a second sun. Jake Morrison watched from the temple balcony as burning debris from a Zephyrian battlecruiser fell toward the planet's surface. The rebellion that had started with a simple scanner modification had spread across 3 star systems in just 2 weeks. "Captain, the Vorthik fleet is requesting permission to land," reported Communications Officer Ryan Cooper. "They want to meet the gods who showed them how to fight back." Jake felt the weight of unintended consequences crushing down on him. The Vorthik had taken Lisa Parker's scanner improvements and turned them into weapons capable of damaging Zephyrian ships. What had started as a simple attempt to help the Trilaxians had become a galactic war. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker stood next to him, her face pale as she watched the destruction. "I never meant for this to happen, Captain. I was just trying to help their power generators work better." "I know, Lisa. None of us could have predicted this." Dr. Greg Hamilton burst onto the balcony, his tablet filled with new data. "Captain, I have been studying the Zephyrian technology fragments from the destroyed ship. You need to see this." Jake followed Hamilton to his makeshift laboratory in the temple basement. The scientist had spread pieces of crystal and metal across. Several tables, each piece glowing with its own internal light. "Look at this," Hamilton said, pointing to a section of what looked like living crystal. "This is not just technology. It is biological. The Zephyrians are not energy beings controlling machines. They are living machines, their consciousness distributed through these crystal matrices." Jake picked up one of the smaller pieces. It felt warm and seemed to pulse with a slow heartbeat. "What does this mean?" "It means the Zephyrians are not gods, Captain. They are an advanced species that has integrated technology into their biology. More importantly, look at this." Hamilton showed Jake a scan of the crystal's internal structure. "These matrices are deteriorating. The Zephyrians are dying." Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the temple. "Security Chief." Kate Anderson's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain, we have a massive Zephyrian fleet approaching the planet. Hundreds of ships." Jake ran to the command center that the Trilaxians had built for their human gods. The main screen showed a sight that made his stomach drop. The Zephyrian fleet filled space like a swarm of glowing insects, each ship larger than anything humans had ever built. Vex 9 entered the command center, his insect body trembling with fear. "Divine Ones, the eternal Zephyrians have sent there. Grand fleet. They have never assembled so many ships before. They mean to end the rebellion permanently." "How many ships?" Jake asked. "Over 1,000, Great One. Each ship can destroy a planet." Jake's mind raced. The Wanderer was fast, but it could not outrun 1,000 ships. Even if they escaped, the Zephyrians would destroy every world that had joined the rebellion. Billions of innocent beings would die because of his crew's mistakes. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of a Zephyrian command ship. The being who appeared was larger than Keth Prime, its crystal body pulsing with angry red light. When it spoke, its voice shook the temple walls. "I am Zeth Supreme, Lord of the Eternal Fleet. You have violated the sacred order of the galaxy. Your subjects have dared to attack their gods. For this crime, every world that has joined your rebellion will be cleansed." "Wait," Jake said quickly. "We can find a peaceful solution." "There is no peace for those who defy the gods. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not allow false gods to destroy what we have built." The communication ended, leaving Jake and his crew staring at a screen full of enemy ships. Outside, the Trilaxian population was gathering in the streets, looking to their human gods for salvation. Dr. Amy Rodriguez entered the command center with news that made the situation even more complex. "Captain, I have been analyzing the genetic samples from all the species we have encountered. The results are impossible to believe." "What did you find?" "Every species in this galaxy shares common genetic markers. The Trilaxians, the Vorphic, even the Zephyrians. They are all related to each other and to us. It is like they are all branches of the same ancient family tree." Jake stared at the geneticist. "How is that possible?" "I do not know, but there is more. The genetic patterns suggest that all these species originated from the same source millions of years ago. Someone or something spread life throughout this galaxy, and we are all descended from that original civilization." Navigator Ben Jackson looked up from his station. "Captain, the Zephyrian fleet is powering weapons. They are preparing to attack the planet. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. Open a channel to all ships in the system. Zephyrian, Vorthic, and Trilaxian." When the channel opened, Jake could see representatives from dozens of species watching him. The weight of their expectations pressed down on him like a physical force. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship. Wanderer. I have something to tell you all, and it is going to change everything you believe about yourselves and your history." Zeth Supreme's voice boomed through the speakers. "You dare to speak before the gods prepare judgment?" "I dare to speak because I have discovered the truth about all of us," Jake replied. "We are not gods and subjects. We are not rulers and slaves. We are family." The command center fell silent. On the screen, Jake could see confusion on the faces of beings from across the galaxy. "Our scientist has discovered that every species in this galaxy shares the same genetic foundation. The Trilaxians, the Vorthic, the Zephyrians, and humans. We are all descendants of the same ancient civilization. We are brothers and sisters separated by time and space." "Impossible," Zeth Supreme snarled. "The Zephyrians are the eternal rulers. We have always existed as gods." "No," Jake said firmly. "You have existed as the guardians of our shared legacy. Your ancestors were not gods. They were the caretakers of a great civilization that spread life throughout the galaxy. Over time, you forgot your true purpose and became rulers instead of protectors." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. "I can prove it. The genetic evidence is undeniable. Every species here carries the same ancient DNA patterns. We are all children of the same parents." The Zephyrian fleet stopped moving. Jake could see Zeth Supreme's crystal form flickering with uncertain light. "Even if this is true," the Zephyrian leader said, "it changes nothing. Order must be maintained." "But it changes everything," Jake replied. "For 10,000 years, you have carried the burden of ruling alone. You have tried to guide your family from a distance, but children grow up. They need to learn and explore and make their own choices." Keth Prime's voice joined the conversation. "Zeth Supreme, I have observed these humans closely. Their technology enhances our systems in ways that should not be possible. If they are truly our ancient brothers, their arrival may be the sign we have waited for." "What sign?" Jake asked. "A sign that our long exile is ending. The Zephyrians have guarded the galaxy for 10,000 years, waiting for the day when our scattered family would be ready to reunite. Perhaps that day has come." The Vorthic commander, a massive warrior with scars covering his scaled hide, spoke for the first time. "If we are truly brothers, then the time of slavery is over. The Vorthic will serve no gods, but we will stand with family." Jake felt hope stirring in his chest. Around the galaxy, representatives from hundreds of species were listening to this conversation. The war could still be avoided if they could make the Zephyrians understand. "Zeth Supreme," Jake said, "your people are dying. We have seen the deterioration in your crystal matrices. You cannot maintain your role as gods forever, but as teachers and guides, working with your family instead of ruling over them, you could live forever." The Zephyrian leader was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its anger. "You speak of things that are forbidden even to think. The order of the galaxy cannot be changed." "It can be changed," Jake said. "It must be changed. The rebellion is spreading because your subjects are ready to grow up. You can fight them and destroy both them and yourselves, or you can accept them as the family they have always been." The silence stretched across space, connecting thousands of ships and billions of beings. Jake realized that the next words spoken would determine the fate of an entire galaxy. The silence stretched across space for what felt like hours. Jake Morrison watched the faces of alien leaders on his screen, each one waiting for someone else to speak first. The fate of billions hung in the balance, and Jake knew that the wrong word could start a war that would destroy everything. Finally, Zeth Supreme spoke, his crystal form pulsing with uncertain light. You claim we are family, but you have no proof beyond genetic similarities. Any species could share common elements. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward, her tablet filled with data. I have more than genetic evidence. I have been studying the quantum signatures in your crystal matrices. They match patterns in human brain activity during deep meditation. Your consciousness operates on the same frequencies as human thought. Impossible, Keth Prime said, but his voice lacked conviction. Look at your own records, Rodriguez continued. Your oldest histories speak of a time before the Zephyrians ruled, when your ancestors served as guardians for a great civilization. That civilization was not yours. It was the parent species that created all of us. Jake saw something change in the Zephyrian leaders' expressions. The angry red light in their crystal forms shifted to a cooler blue. There are records, Zeth Supreme admitted slowly. Ancient files that speak of the first ones, the species that seeded the galaxy with life. But those are myths, stories told to children. They are not myths, Jake said firmly. They are memories. Your ancestors knew the truth, but over thousands of years, the knowledge became legend and then was forgotten entirely. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Susan Taylor joined the conversation from her position at the medical scanner. I have been analyzing the biological samples from the destroyed Zephyrian ship. Your crystal matrices are not just deteriorating, they are reverting to their original form. Your bodies are trying to become biological again. What does that mean? Asked Vex 9, who had been listening quietly. It means the Zephyrians are not meant to be living machines forever. They transformed themselves to become immortal guardians, but their bodies remember what they used to be. They are dying because they are fighting their own nature. Jake felt the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. You have been alone for so long that you forgot why you became gods in the first place. You were not meant to rule forever. You were meant to protect the galaxy until your family was ready to reunite. Zeth Supreme's form flickered with rapid color changes. Even if this is true, the damage is done. The rebellion has spread to over 50 systems. The order of the galaxy is breaking down. Then let it break down, Jake said. Replace it with something better. You do not understand, Keth Prime said. Without the Zephyrian order, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Species will fight each other for resources. Civilizations will collapse. Or they will learn to cooperate, Jake replied. You never gave them the chance to try. The Vorthic commander, whose name Jake had learned was General Corax, spoke with a voice like grinding stone. The Vorthic have been slaves for 3 centuries. We will not return to bondage, even if it means war. And you should not have to. Jake said, no species should be slaves to another. But you also do not have to be enemies. Security Chief Kate Anderson whispered in Jake's ear. Captain, we are getting reports from across the galaxy. The rebellion is spreading faster than we thought. Over 100 systems have declared independence. Jake realized that the conversation was moving beyond theoretical philosophy. The galaxy was already changing, whether the Zephyrians accepted it or not. Zeth Supreme, Jake said, you have a choice. You can fight a war against 100 rebellious systems and probably win, but at the cost of destroying the very family you are meant to protect. Or you can admit that your guardianship has succeeded. The galaxy is ready to take care of itself. We have maintained peace for 10,000 years, Zeth Supreme said. How do we know that peace will continue without us? You do not, Jake admitted. But children have to be allowed to make their own mistakes. That is how they learn to become adults. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker stepped forward with a tablet showing energy readings from across the galaxy. Captain, I have been monitoring the power grids on the rebellious worlds. They are using our scanner modifications to create new technologies at an incredible rate. The Trilaxians have already developed faster-than-light communication that does not require the Zephyrian network. They are advancing too quickly, Keth Prime said with alarm. Rapid technological development leads to war and destruction. Or it leads to progress, Jake replied. You have kept these species at the same technological level for thousands of years. Maybe it is time to let them grow. Navigator Ben Jackson looked up from his station with urgent news. Captain, we have Zephyrian ships breaking formation. Some of them are moving away from the main fleet. On the screen, Jake could see that several dozen Zephyrian vessels had separated from the massive fleet. Their crystal hulls pulsed with the same blue light he had seen in their leaders' forms. Those are the younger Zephyrians, Keth Prime explained. They have always questioned the wisdom of eternal rule. It seems your words have reached them. One of the separated ships opened a communication channel. The Zephyrian who appeared on screen was smaller than the others, his crystal form more organic-looking. I am Vex Prime of the Reformist Collective. We have listened to your words, humans, and we believe you speak the truth. The time of gods is ending. The time of family should begin. Zeth Supreme's form blazed with angry red light. You dare to break ranks? You betray 10,000 years of tradition. We uphold 10,000 years of guardianship, Vex Prime replied. Calmly, our ancestors became gods to protect the galaxy until it was ready to govern itself. Look around you. 50 systems have declared independence in 2 weeks. The galaxy is ready. Jake seized the opportunity. Zeth Supreme, your own people are telling you the same thing we are. The age of gods is ending not because you have failed, but because you have succeeded. And what would you have us do? Zeth Supreme asked. Abandon our posts? Let the galaxy fall into chaos? Join the galaxy, Jake said. Not as gods, but as teachers. Share your knowledge freely instead of hoarding it. Help your family grow instead of keeping them small. Dr. Rodriguez added, and let your bodies return to their natural state. You are dying as living machines, but you could live forever as biological beings working with your family. The Trilaxian leader Vex 9 spoke for the first time in the conversation. Great ones, if you are truly our family, then the Trilaxians would be honored to learn from you as brothers, not as servants. Similar messages began coming in from across a galaxy. The Drakmari mining worlds, the Essence Singer communication networks, even the enslaved Vorthic labor colonies, all were offering to work with the Zephyrians as equals rather than subjects. Zeth Supreme's form cycle. Through rapid color changes. The ancient leader was processing information at speeds no human could match, weighing the consequences of decisions that would affect trillions of lives. The transition would be dangerous, Zeth Supreme said finally. Species that have been subjects for millennia do not become equals overnight. There will be conflicts, power struggles, wars between neighboring systems. There will be growing pains, Jake agreed. But there will also be growth. And you will be there to guide them, not as gods, but as older brothers helping younger siblings. Learn to walk. The moment stretched on. Jake could feel the weight of history pressing down on the bridge. Everything that happened next would determine whether the galaxy moved toward freedom or descended into a war that could destroy everything. Finally, Zeth Supreme spoke the words that would change everything. Perhaps the time of gods is ending. 1 year later, Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching ships from 100 different species work together to build the galaxy's first cooperative research facility. His station hung in space, at the edge of the former Zephyrian capital system, a symbol of the new age that had begun with a single human ship appearing in the wrong place at the right time. Captain, called Chief Engineer Lisa Parker from across the deck, the Trilaxian. Engineering teams have finished installing the new power cores. They are running at efficiency levels we never thought possible. Jake smiled as he watched a Trilaxian work crew collaborate with a team of Zephyrians to install equipment that combined both species' technologies. The Zephyrians no longer glowed with the harsh light of living machines. They had allowed their bodies to return to their natural biological state, their crystal matrices now serving as sophisticated tools rather than life. Support systems. The transformation had not been easy. In the months following Zeth Supreme's decision to end the Age of Gods, the galaxy had experienced exactly the kind of chaos that the Zephyrians had predicted. Some species had tried to conquer their neighbors. Others had collapsed into civil wars as different factions fought over who should lead now that the gods were gone. But other species had surprised everyone. The Trilaxians had formed a democratic council within weeks of gaining their freedom. The Vorthek had channeled their warrior culture into becoming peacekeepers, helping to resolve conflicts between other species. The Drakmari had shared their mining technology freely, creating abundance where there had once been scarcity. "Captain Morrison," said a familiar voice behind him. Jake turned to see Keth Prime approaching, his form now more biological than crystalline. The former Zephyrian leader had become one of the strongest advocates for the new galactic cooperation. "Just Jake, please. We have talked about this." Keth Prime's expression showed something that Jake had learned to recognize as a Zephyrian smile. "Old habits die hard, but you are correct. How are the preparations for the expedition?" Jake looked through the observation windows at the fleet of ships being prepared for humanity's next great adventure. The vessels were unlike anything that had ever been built. They combined human engineering with Zephyrian energy systems, Trilaxian manufacturing techniques, and Vorthik defensive technologies. "The ships will be ready in a month," Jake said. "Dr. Rodriguez thinks she has identified 3 nearby galaxies that show the same genetic signatures as our own. If she is right, we are not the only family out there." "The prospect is both exciting and terrifying," Keth Prime admitted. "We spent 10,000 years believing we were alone with our burden. Now we discover that we were never alone at all." Dr. Amy Rodriguez joined them, her tablet displaying star charts that showed the locations of other galaxy clusters. "The quantum signatures are unmistakable. There are at least 12 other galaxies that show signs of having been seeded by the Yo. Same ancient civilization that created us. 12 other families," Jake mused. "I wonder if they went through the same struggles we did." "Some probably did," said Dr. Susan Taylor, who had been studying the psychological effects of the transition from worship to cooperation. "The pattern seems to be that one species becomes the guardian while the others develop at their own pace. Eventually, the guardians either learn to let go or destroy themselves trying to maintain control." Security Chief Kate Anderson approached with a report that made Jake's heart swell with pride. "Captain, we just received word from the Outer Rim. Territories. The last of the holdout systems has agreed to join the Galactic Cooperation Alliance. We now have representation from over 3,000 species." Jake could hardly believe how much had changed. The galaxy that had once been ruled by fear and worship was now governed by councils where every species had an equal voice. There were still problems, disputes over resources, cultural conflicts, and the occasional species that tried to dominate others. But these issues were resolved through negotiation and compromise rather than divine decree. "There is something," Kate continued. "We have been getting reports from the edge of the galaxy. Long-range sensors have detected ships that do not match any known species. They appear to be explorers, not invaders. Another family coming to visit? Jake asked. It is possible. The ships are using technology similar to ours, but with variations that suggest independent development. Navigator Ben Jackson's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, we have an incoming transmission from Earth. It is Admiral Chun with the monthly report. Jake activated the holographic display that showed Earth's first female admiral, Sarah Chun, sitting in her office at the newly expanded Space Command headquarters. Behind her, Jake could see construction crews working on the massive shipyards that would soon launch humanity's first interstellar colonization fleet. Jake, good to see you, Admiral Chun said. I have news from Earth that I think you will find interesting. The genetic research teams have been studying the samples you sent back. They have confirmed Dr. Rodriguez's findings. Humans share the two same basic genetic template as every species in your galaxy. What does that mean for Earth? Jake asked. It means we are part of something much larger than we ever imagined. The President has authorized the construction of 50 new exploration vessels. We want to be ready when your expedition returns with news of the other galaxies. Jake felt a surge of excitement. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of a vast family that spanned multiple galaxies. The isolation that had defined human existence for thousands of years was ending. There is one more thing, Admiral Chun continued. The archaeological team in Egypt has made a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about human history. They found a chamber beneath the Great Pyramid that contains star charts showing the locations of inhabited galaxies. The charts are over 12,000 years old. 12,000 years, Jake repeated. That is older than recorded human civilization. Exactly. It seems that humans may have been in contact with the galactic family before, but the knowledge was lost during some ancient catastrophe. We are not just rejoining the family, we are returning to it. As the transmission ended, Jake looked around at his crew and allies. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker was working with Trilaxian technicians to solve a power distribution problem. Dr. Rodriguez was comparing notes with Zephyrian scientists about genetic patterns in distant galaxies. Former enemies were now collaborators, working together to explore the mysteries of the universe. Jake, said Keth Prime, do you ever wonder what would have happened if your ship had not appeared when it did? Jake considered the question. The galaxy would have eventually reached this point anyway. Species grow and change. That is their nature. We just happened to be the catalyst that made it happen sooner. Perhaps. But I think there is more to it than that. The timing was too perfect. Humanity appeared just when the galaxy was ready for change, with exactly the right combination of technology and perspective to guide that change peacefully. You think it was planned? I think the universe has a way of providing what is needed when it is needed. Your ancestors may have known that someday humanity would need to play this role. Jake looked out at the bustling construction activity. Around Unity Station, ships from dozens of species worked together to build something that had never existed before. A truly cooperative civilization that spanned an entire galaxy. Whatever the reason, Jake said, we are here now, and we have work to do. The next day, Jake stood on the bridge of the UES Explorer, the flagship of humanity's first intergalactic expedition. The ship was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by dozens of species working together. As the fleet prepared to depart for the distant galaxies, Jake felt the weight of responsibility and the excitement of discovery. All ships report ready for departure, announced Communications Officer Ryan Cooper. Take us out, Jake ordered Dot, as the fleet engaged their combined human Zephyrian hyperspace drives. Jake thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. A simple exploration mission had accidentally triggered a galactic revolution. False gods had become true. Family. And humanity had found its place in a universe far more vast and wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. The ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying representatives of 100 species toward distant galaxies and new adventures. Behind them, the galaxy continued its transformation from empire to alliance, from worship to cooperation, from fear to hope. Out in the depths of space, ancient star charts hidden in Egyptian pyramids had predicted this moment. The family was reuniting, one galaxy at a time, and the universe was becoming a little less lonely with each passing day.